Anyone? Dode?
I think
Yesterday?
I need to call me.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm going to have to start calling out people because I don't want to be talking to myself. This is a conversation, it's a discussion that we're all going to learn from. So,
Absolutely. So I have found everything useful from day one till now. And I have also started implementing some of them. Uh, for one of those days, we were supposed to get reviewers for our LinkedIn profile and our CV. So I've done half of that. I got a reviewer for my LinkedIn profile. I'm yet to send a CV. I'm trying to package it very well so that it can be, so that I can make inputs from all of these into it first before sending it to a reviewer. So that is still pending. And it has actually opened up conversations between me and some of the people on this course, some of the faculty members, and the conversations have been very, very useful. Some I can apply immediately, and some I will apply in the future as I network and as I hunt for jobs. So they've been very useful, I must say. Thank you very much, everyone, for all the input so far.
that's good to know. Like, so you're trying to take all the learning, so your action points after review will not be so much. I get that. That's actually, it's great to know. It's great to know.
Yeah.
And just to say that, a lot of what we're talking about today is going to be a continuous process. Like, there's no start and stop about it. It's a continuous thing. Like, while some people have gone through it, it's a continuous, but we keep going through it, we keep learning from it. So yeah, good on you. Yetunde, do you want to share?
Hello, Taiwo.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was the question? Sorry, I got distracted here. Sorry.
Yeah, so I was saying, the last 10 days we've been talking about a lot, around, getting to know our strengths, around our personal brand, updating LinkedIn profiles, personal development planning, getting ready for job interviews. And I was saying so far, what can you say about how you've applied it, how you're going to apply it, if it's something that has been useful so far before we get into today's conversation around option B and option C.
Oh, okay. Yeah, definitely. It has been very useful. I mean, the session that struck me the most was on the one where we were asked to check our names on Google. So, I mean, it was.
What did you find?
I was not saying sorry for myself, like, no, this is not good. So, I mean, it's going forward, I want us to go far enough then. I've not really done my plan for 2021, so I mean it's going to fit into it, and so I'll see what to do that would at least make it better. So on my LinkedIn profile and on my CV, I shared with someone on one of the faculty members, and I've gotten feedback, and I still need to work on those. I mean, there's a lot of work I need to still sit down and do on that. So started working on it, and I'll continue to work on it as well. So I mean, they've been very useful conversations, and still work in progress. So thank you.
I'm glad, and I think for me, I think the most exciting thing that you just said was the haha moment you had when you Googled your name. I think some of us, get shocked, about that, and it's something we need to keep an eye on. I'm just going to tell a quick story about that. So when I joined my MBA class, there was this guy in my class. He used to be a medical doctor, and someone was like, "Have you Googled this guy?" Like to just show you how powerful these things are. And I Googled this guy, and he used to be a doctor. And when people come to class, they tell you one story, and then you Google them, and then you see something else. Turned out that he lost his license because of an opioid issue and all of that. Like, and that stuff is just out there on the internet for anybody who wants to see it. So it's just like, it just tells you how powerful you know impressions can be when people just Google you and see stuff. They might not even know you personally, but what they see out there just sets precedence for a lot. So I was going to share that story, and I forgot on that day. Thanks, Yetunde. Stella.
Yes, ma.
Do you want to go next?
No, but talking about this Googling yourself and seeing what it says. So there's this guy. I went on a business trip once and I met somebody in the I think it was the Eco Hotel restaurant, and we're discussing. And he told me his name, said he's a poet, said he's this, said he's that. And I was like, oh, okay, you're a poet and you're a novelist. That means you must be popular. Let me Google your name. And then I Googled it. And the first 3 articles I saw, first 3 posts were talking about him being a sexual deviant and abuser. Apparently, young girls will come and meet him that they want to become poets and novelists, and the guy will force them to sleep with him, and until all of them now start complaining, and then all the feminists now picked it up. So I can imagine how such a person's life would be like. Every time people Google your name, they're going to be seeing only the fact that you're a semi-rapist or rapey or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just talks up to the power of Googling. For me, what really has stood out for me, I like the talk about developing a brand, and the interviews. I really enjoyed the session with Uche when he talked about interviews, spoke about his experiences, and what he had to do, and the connections and networks he had to build. I also liked the connection on having a sponsor, having mentors, just walking through the whole politics, inter-office politics in a favorably, a way that comes out favorable to you. So yeah, thank you.
Yep. Thanks, Stella. Isi, welcome. We're happy to have you on call. So NG, Uche, Isioma, do you guys want to say something or two before we get into the conversation?
So hi, Taiwo, was here.
Yeah.
So I really would say it's been a very, very enlightening, refreshing few days. Last few days have been really refreshing. So what it's done is to also good enough. The reason why I was like, oh, this particular group is for me was that one has been having questions. You just have this yearning, stirrings in your heart and your mind. And so this session has helped me listen, see that I'm not alone, learn from you guys, yourself, Roberta, Uche, Shema, these conversations that has just like little pieces, just fitting into the puzzle,
Yeah.
So it has been really good. Especially listening to you the first time when you did the Zoom call and beginning to say, okay, fine, what's making my mind about what it is that we want to say, and then that fun conversation that we had, and then as well, listen to Roberta talk about personal development, and the fact that you just have to believe in yourself and your value, and then about skills and everything. And of course, listen to Uche, listening to Chris. It's just been really, really refreshing.
That's good to know. I mean, it's been refreshing for me as well. Me too. I'm taking notes because I'm also like, it's a cycle. I'm also going through it, so I'm also taking notes. Like it's a learning for every one of us, and I can appreciate that. Angie.
Yeah, for me too. I mean, from day one, from the survey we took, that basically helped me understand myself better. Like I said, when I took that survey, I was slightly scared as to how accurate, the thing described me. But it also did that in a positive light. Now, some of the things that, people will point out as a problem, maybe you're too bullish, you're too strict, it actually gave a positive spin to it and further emphasized, what I'm learning about, stamping your identity on whatever you do, that you are unique. Because one of the things I've learned is when people give you feedback, sometimes they're actually superimposing themselves on you. And it's if you've gone through trainings on assessments and recruitment as a recruiter, there's a bias called same as self. That's where people only drawn to candidates that behave, talk, and like the same things as they do. And that's typically what happens a lot of times when people give feedback or respond to you in a certain way. So I've learned a lot of things in these 10 days. And one of the things I also like to encourage people, and I'm also learning, is when you find yourself in forums like this, it also helps build your network. Because beyond here, there are individuals in this group that can provide you, a much needed support, and that could put you ahead. Yeah. So thanks, and thanks, Isioma, for setting this up. It was a very good idea.
Yes. Don't worry, some of your accolades are coming finally. Thanks, Uche, for sharing that. And, out of all that you said, one of the things that kind of, stuck out was around, when people give you feedback, how they superimpose yourself. And I think, the bane of it is, in even first understanding who you are, because that way you're able to now, determine what feedback is actually valuable to you, versus what is being superimposed on you. So, thank you for highlighting that. Isi, Isioma, do you want to say a thing or two before we get into today's conversation?
See, I'm feeling a bit conscious. I came in late, so I don't know the question people are asking.
All right, that's fine. So we're kind of just reflecting on the last 10 days because, before we get into talking about option B and option C, because it feeds into what we're going to talk about today. So I was just trying to get people's test the litmus around, okay, how are people, applying, what are the, I think, the biggest takeaways in the last couple of days, what has stood out for them.
So for me, I did not really think I was going to benefit, right? But I always know that there's always opportunity to learn from anytime you bring like three minds together. But I did not believe that there was such a differential amount of knowledge I would have that I could gain in 10 days. And my challenge is then, using it to improve what I'm already doing. And now looking at, okay, maybe as the program, designer, seeing how impactful it has been. And like, I thought this was going to be a one-off thing, and people are saying it's so impactful. So do I need to do another one? I have that pressure as the program designer, but as an individual, looking at, okay, especially the conversation Uche had about how you can convert, how you can convert something you look at as criticism and everything to a lever for growth, right? And the role that humility plays in that, for you to go and meet someone that's criticizing you and you think has bad blood for you and say, oh yeah, coach me. Oh yeah, be my man. I'm just like, damn, we need a special kind of grace for that. Another aspect of it is, of course, the Googling aspect. I was just like, oh my God, why am I seeing companies that I've opened and I've never used, right? I said, all the business names I've registered. And I'm just like, what the hell? that was an interesting one. My LinkedIn profile, I've done a lot of work on it in the past, so I think it's good to go. But thank you all for bringing everything, because I think you proved something right, because I knew that the faculty would not be the only persons given. I also thought that this opportunity was to identify people that actually have, can actually be faculties for other rounds. And I see that coming true. So thank you everyone for giving it, because it's not easy to even say, okay, I'm going to join something I don't know much about, but I will join it and you will commit to paying it forward. I think that shows the kind of humans that you are. So this day 10. We still have 4 more days of discussion to go. So let's not do the valedictorian speech now.
Thank you, Sewa. Thank you so much for highlighting, the point about, coming here to help and then also gaining out of it. I think we're all in that same boat. Chuka said his biggest takeaway has been around being very deliberate with events in his professional life. right? Thank you, Chuka, for sharing that. You probably typed that because is it that you're shy, you don't want to talk to us, but okay, we'll take your chat like that. Okay, getting into today's conversation around option B and option C. I mean, one of the key reasons why I wanted us to reflect on the last couple of days and how we have applied the learnings is the fact that basically, if you've done all the exercises and all the reflections from the past 10 days, you're actually getting that is actually the foundation for defining what your option B and option C is. Talking about starting from, understanding who you are, what your strengths are, connecting the dots around your life, your career, your profession, where they intersect, understanding what you like to do, what you're interested in doing, what opportunities, intersect with your strengths, your skills, your past experience. And, everything we basically talked about, now lands you at, okay, what are my options B and option C? And that's why I don't know if did anyone rewatch the video that Roberta shared around design thinking, applying design thinking to your life? Did anyone watch that video? Anyone? Okay.
Yes, I did.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
watched the video again.
Yeah. So for those that didn't watch it, I actually highly recommend that you watch it. It's actually a very simplified, description of applying design thinking to your life. But one of the steps that the speaker mentioned was around prototyping. You've figured out, okay, this is where I'm good at. These are my boundaries based on your environment. Roberta touched up on that. You know what your boundaries are based on your environment, your stakeholders. You know what you're good at, the skills you have. Then you now begin to say, okay, what with all that I know, what are all the options that I have? And that is where the prototyping bit comes. How do you begin to narrow down, is then the question. And what the speaker mentioned was around how do you prototype? So two things. You either speak to people who are in those areas where you're considering, right? You speak to people who are experiencing it. For example, now, when I left Shell and I came to do my MBA, I was like, I'm going to go into consulting. It all sounded so glam. It all sounded so interesting. I also thought about investment banking. Those things sound really nice and, great, out there. But when I started talking to people who worked in these areas, we spoke about, their life, what their day-to-days are, what their work-life balance looks like. And then I was, immediately realized, dude, that I'm not interested in being a consultant again. I'm not doing it again. Same thing with investment banking. Like, what is this what people do? No, I'm not doing it again. Like, you can already begin to eliminate. So you need to have those, prototyping conversations. You can't just assume that it's all glam. Oh, the money sounds good, but will you actually be happy when you go, into that area? That's the importance of those conversations. The second type of prototyping he talked about was the experiential one. He mentioned something about a lady who wanted to go back to school, right? And she was like, oh, I'm too old. I'm too old to go back to school. There are too many millennials who are this, who are that, and all of that. But you know what? She was like, okay, I'll just go and sit in the class and see what it looks like, right? A couple of these schools, a lot of schools, I mean they don't do in Nigeria, but a lot of schools here in the West, they actually offer like 1 hour sit in our class, experience what it looks like kind of thing. you know and she sat in class and realized that, oh my god, the energy from the younger ones are, exactly what she needed. And it turned out that, even the class were like, oh my God, like you come with so much experience, like a different perspective, somebody with this kind of experience be valuable to the class. So, it kind of helped her, you know, discard, all those assumptions she has in her head. And that's, the importance of prototyping your options. So that part of it is very important. It's not enough to, finish, all that analysis of myself, or what area I will be good at, or what area I think I might like. It's not enough. And for most of us at this stage in our careers, we're not early career professionals. We are in mid career, so things are a bit different from when we all started out. And at this point in our careers, you can all agree with me that that those kind of conversations are very, very important. So I'll share my own experience on, about getting a second degree. And probably that would buttress the point about, prototyping. So when I joined Shell, my first degree is in math. And when I joined Shell, this thing we have about, oh my God, I mean, like everybody has a degree in petroleum engineering. Perhaps I should get a master's in petroleum engineering. And I got into the online masters or towards petroleum engineering. I had zero objective as to how that degree was going to be valuable to me. I couldn't tie it to anything that I was trying to achieve. It was just a case of, let me just get it for the sake of getting it. And because of that, I got into the online program. Like, I cannot tell you today that I gained anything valuable from it, except from the fact that I learned that it's not enough to just say you want to get a degree. That was my learning from it. Anyway, the long and short of this is I did not finish that degree. I eventually just abandoned it. And for me, it was making a decision to let the sunk cost be sunk cost, because I wasn't learning anything new. A lot of what I was doing in the online, I mean, basically the online degree is you register for a course, you get sent the material, you read it, and you write an exam, period. Somebody is calling me a college dropout. You get sent the material, you read it, and you write an exam. Like, it was totally not my learning style to start with. I learned by doing and interacting with people. So that was just really stressful for me. And then at the end of the day, I realized I wasn't learning anything new. A lot of what I was reading was what I was doing on the job. So I decided to make a hard decision and save my energy for things that were more valuable. And when it was time to do an MBA, I actually visited schools in America, sat down in classes, actually did that prototyping of, okay, what does it feel like to be back in a classroom? I did that, right? And I think it kind of helped me, make that decision to leave the shell job, just to give me that sense of comfort that I am not crazy for leaving my shell job. So I would totally agree with, the speaker's point around prototyping your options. So that's kind of, what I would like to share about that. Yes, Isioma, yes, I'm a college dropout, but I mean, you know, we have a lot of those, the Elon Musks of this world. You never know. Okay, so I'm just gonna hang my talking points there. And yes, yesterday the session is being recorded. So I'm just going to hang my talking points there and then open it for, conversations, questions. Like, we need to start a discussion around the option B and option C conversation. So I'm just going to open the floor. And in 5 seconds, if nobody volunteers to start, I will start cold calling out people. So who wants to go first?
What was the question?
So it's not a question. We're opening the floor for conversation, like questions, like based on what I've just talked about.
No, I mean, I'm not answering your question, but just reflecting on what you've just said about prototyping, and I'm just again, I know I don't want to, gain the reputation of always bashing our country, but I mean, I'm just reflecting on, I mean, having nephews and kids, schooling elsewhere, and the kind of things that they do as part of their education, right? For example, my nephew, he wants to study medicine, and in the US they have a program where aspiring high school or junior high science students who wants to do medicine are taken through a week of boot camp, medical boot camp, so that they're able to sort of prototype, if I use the presenter's parlance, if this is what they really want to do, right? And basically picture it. Some of them come back fired up, right, to do it. And you have other programs, like that. Kids go visit farms and all that, and they are immersed into that experience, So I mean, and while you were saying this, it just helped me reflect as to how people are able to, catch these things young too.
Yeah. As in, thanks for sharing that. It's actually, as in, that thing, that what you just said is actually very, if it's very, very very, very valuable. Some things sound, cool, but until you talk to people who have done it, until you do it, before you begin to realize that it's probably not something you want to do after you have spent one semester of dollars on school fees. right? So thanks for that, Uche. Ngozi, you
I
have a
think for
question.
So I wanted to continue from Uche's perspective.
Sure, sure.
What Uche talked about, that exposure. I think for me, I suffer from that section in the sense that I'm still lost. While I was growing up, I was made to work in hospitals, just because everybody was supposed to be a doctor because our family is filled with medical people. And I was made to work in, I actually was working in, as in going around Shell at a point in time, just to have that feel of the engineering space. I was exposed to arts and crafts and things like that. We had different sessions where you would have people in our life come talk to you about what they're doing and all that. Until date, I still feel I'm floating. Do you get what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I feel like I can excel in whatever I put my mind to do. But as to, when you're talking to people and they say, oh, they had that spark, as in that feeling, that passion, or that feeling that this is what they want to do for the rest of their life. I'm still stuck in that space where I'm like, I just need to make sure I have money to enjoy my life. I need to make sure I have money to retire early and just maybe travel and do what. So I mean, I understand where you are coming from, talking to people and trying to understand where you want to be, but I still struggle because I've done that work and I'm still lost.
So that's actually like what you're feeling is actually not it's not abnormal really. And thank you for actually, bringing it up. And that's why I also highlighted that, a couple of things that we probably, could get away with in our earlier years, we cannot get away with now for many reasons, financial being one of them, and the fact that maybe some of us just don't like stress, that kind of thing. And I know you're in that WhatsApp group, Chine. But I think, when we're talking about option B and option C, it doesn't narrow down to just your career, which is why I mentioned that if you've done, all the exercises we talked about in the last 10 days around, connecting your work and your life, you know, understanding your environment, what are the things that are important to you, before you get to the point of narrowing down to option B and option C in terms of, okay, is it money I'm looking for in my career? Is it fulfillment? If it is money, in case this option that I have today is not working out, what are my option B's and option C's, right? And I think it still applies, right? If peradventure you have to leave Shell today, what's your option B and option C to keep that money coming in, right? It's still applicable. So if you've done all that work, everything still ties back to what's important to you, what your strengths and skills are, what you can do, what you like to do, and all of that. You have all that mapped out. If money is the cocoa of the matter, you still have to have, option B and option C to ensure that it is that money that keeps coming in. I don't. Do you understand what I'm trying to say, Chine?
Yeah, I understand. I think even though I've thought about B and C and I'm working towards that, I think I'm just hopeful that I'll have that aha moment in my life. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah, I get what you
But
mean.
without,
I get what,
without it, I still have.
and that's okay. It's okay. It's a journey. I think it's a journey, but you just have to keep it on your radar. That's what I think. Does anyone have anything to add, like, insights to share around what Chineye has just spoken about?
I have nothing to add. I think I also have just a question to ask other people on the call. If with everything that happens now, we have the MOR round and everything, you don't get a job in Shell, what are your options? Have you ever thought of that scenario as a real scenario, as a realistic scenario that by August I may not have a job in Shell? So has anyone thought of that, and how was that reflection?
Crickets. Crickets. Ngozi, can I call on you to share?
Why me? just hold on. Okay. So, truth be told, at the time I was speaking, I was like, well, probably because I've not been impacted. So, no. However, I remember back in 2013, yes, 2013, when the first wave of the real divestments was coming on, and this whole issue of, I think that was the name based Santa Barbara Cotton Channel, the Swamp East divestment. And, listening as they began to speak and everything, began to, suddenly dawned on me, I could actually not have a job in Shell by the time this is done. And that's probably what made me wake up, say, okay, fine, what can I do? What are my skills? And that's why I picked up writing my resume. It was hard work and everything, but I think at the end, I began to get a sense of fulfillment. Yeah, of course, okay, it didn't turn out that way, but it made me begin to think. So when I think about it, honestly, the truth is that as someone was speaking, I asked myself that question. The answer was like, no, I'm not thinking about that, probably because I'm not similarly impacted. However, I'm thinking, I'm also, the reason why these conversations have been really interesting to me, and I've picked up things and I'm beginning to weave them into my, in preparing for the future, is that I'm like, the river is going close to the delta. We're finally getting to the channel, so starting the waterfall, and every one of us, it's a line now. So we that came, the new ones, the young people at the back, we're the ones getting closer and closer, and so probably another 2-3 years from now, this could be my reality, and I don't want to get caught with my pants down, if I may use such a. So yes.
Yeah, thank you.
So I think my experience is I'm not impacted, but okay, good girl. Sorry, I'm preparing breakfast for my baby. So yeah, so I mean, every now and then, I mean, there are times that I feel that and this is just me being vulnerable, there are times that I just feel like walking away from the company, and I'm sure some of us have felt like that from time to time. Where you have really difficult and bad patches, right? You get a tough feedback, or you just have a rough run-in with your boss or stuff like that. And like I introduced, I mean, I spend half of my life, with my family in Calgary and half in the field. So sometimes on the plane, after a 4 weeks run in the field, and I'm on the plane back to Canada, I'm telling myself, well, once I get to Nigeria, I'm sending my resignation letter, back. But when I get back home, I sit down, I reflect, and it's just that endless circle. But then I ask myself, so if you walk away from the company, and it can be both ways, you can actually choose. I know we've not talked about, we focus on the reshape, MOR, success. I mean, there's also the option of doing what Taiwo did, write sending a resignation letter and walk away. That's an option, right? And if you do take that option or do that today, and that's what I asked myself: what do I have? What can I give? What can I do? Right? And it was a difficult and a very uncomfortable, um, um, question for me, because I hadn't really articulated what my skills were. So I used to program a lot, especially during my graduate trainee days in Shell and at school and all that. And when I did my master's, I did a bit of programming also for instrumentation